By noon, the creek had turned from a strip of brown water into a wide, angry river. Geraldine Carter stood at the front window of her boarding house and watched it climb over the banks. Coyote Creek was not wide in dry weather. Most days a man could cross it on stepping stones if he did not mind wet boots. But spring had come hard that year. The snow in the hills had melted fast, then rain had fallen for 2 days. Now the creek was full of branches, mud, and bits of fence. It hit the bridge under the railroad road like a fist. The town of Coyote Flat was still new. The depot stood on one side of the tracks, the store, the blacksmith shop, and 2 small houses on the other. A few boxcars waited on a side track. Mud covered the streets. Wind pushed the smell of wet earth and coal smoke through town. At the creek, men were gathered around the bridge. Geraldine could see them from her window. One of the bridge posts had started to lean. The far end of the planks was wet and dark. Every few minutes, the water slapped under the beams and sent up a splash. She tied her apron, took her coat, and went out. When she reached the creek, she found Tom Baird, the blacksmith, and Samuel Bell, the town clerk, talking in low voices. Bell was a thin man with a red beard and worried eyes. He kept wiping his hands on his trousers, though they were already dirty. "If this bridge goes, we are cut in 2, he said. Tom spat into the mud. "It is already close to going." Geraldine looked at the water. "Can we get across before it falls?" Tom shook his head. "Not on foot. Maybe not with a horse either." Bell looked at her. "The deed box is on the far bank. So is Anna Price and her boy." Geraldine frowned. "Ben is still sick?" Bell nodded. "He has had the fever since yesterday. Dr. Mason is here, but his medicine chest is in the wagon shed on this side. Anna sent word from the claim office last night. She says Ben is getting worse." Geraldine looked past the bridge to the low land beyond. A few cabins and a small claim office stood there, half hidden by cottonwoods. That side of the creek had taken more of the flood. The water had spread around the buildings and was now eating at the road. "And the deed box?" she asked. Bell rubbed his forehead. "In the claim office. We moved it there last week, so the bank clerk could use the safe in the depot. I was going to bring it over this morning." The deed box held the town papers. Lot, claims, receipts, maps, names, and signatures were inside. If the box was lost or ruined, half the town might not be able to prove where it had bought land. Men had spent money they could not spare for those papers. Geraldine watched the bridge groan in the wind. "Then we need to get over now," she said. Tom gave a short laugh. "And how do you plan to do that, Miss Carter? Walk on water?" She did not smile. "No, with a wagon and rope." Bell stared at her. "You mean the freight wagon?" "Yes. Tie a line to the front axle. Send 2 men on the near bank to hold it. The wagon can use the shallow bend below the bridge. I have crossed that bend before. Not in flood, but I know the bottom." Tom shook his head again. "The bottom changes when the water runs hard." "So do roads," Geraldine said. "That does not mean we sit still." Tom looked at the creek, then at Bell. The clerk gave a small, helpless shrug. At last Tom said, "If we try it, we do it my way and yours. I will take the team. You tell me where to turn." Geraldine nodded once. "Fine." They worked fast. Tom sent a boy to bring the best team from the livery shed. Belle ran to the depot office for rope. Geraldine went to the store and got thick blankets, a lamp, and a sack of flour to use as weight in the wagon bed. Dr. Henry Mason came from his rooms above the apothecary, with a black bag under his arm. He was a middle-aged man, with a short gray beard and tired eyes. "I heard what you are doing," he said. "It sounds foolish." "So does letting a child lie sick on the other side of a flood," Geraldine replied. That made him nod once. By the time they brought the wagon around, the sky had turned dull and low. The horses stamped and tossed their heads. The creek had climbed another inch. Mud sucked at their boots. Geraldine climbed into the wagon bed and checked the load. The rope was coiled near the front. One blanket was clean and dry. The medicine box was tied in place. There was room for a child and one adult. Maybe two if they sat close. Tom took the reins. Belle and two other men tied the rope to the wagon tongue, then ran the line back to a post near the store. Another line was tied to the cottonwood on the east side, where the bank was higher. It was not a perfect plan. It was only the best one they had. Across the creek, Geraldine saw Anna Price standing in the doorway of the claim office. She was a small woman in a dark dress, with a shawl over her head. In her arms she held Ben, wrapped in a quilt. Even from that distance, Geraldine could see the boy's face. It was pale and wet with sweat. Anna lifted one hand and waved once, then pressed it against the child's forehead. The sight made Geraldine's mouth go dry. Tom climbed up beside her. "Ready? Go slow," she said. "Keep the horses straight. If the wheels turn sideways, we may lose the wagon." He gave her a sharp look. "I know." He flicked the reins, and the team stepped forward. The wagon rolled toward the creek. The bridge stood to their left, its broken boards shaking each time the water struck below. On their right, the flood spread into the grass like a dark stain. The first wheels entered the water with a splash. Cold spray hit Geraldine's face. The horses snorted. The wagon rocked hard, then settled. Tom tightened his grip on the reins. "Easy," Geraldine said. "Keep to the left. There is a hard patch there, N." The team moved another step. Water slapped the axle. The rope went tight behind them. Men on the bank braced their feet in the mud and held it steady. Then the near horse shied when a branch hit its legs. The wagon lurched. Geraldine caught the side rail and leaned her weight to the left. "Whoa! Easy, Buck. Easy, Molly." Tom pulled the reins and spoke low, steady words. The horses bobbed their heads and fought the current. The wagon wheels sank deeper. Mud rose around them in thick waves. The water was up to the hubs now. It pushed against the wagon-like hands. Geraldine looked ahead. The far bank was still 20 feet away, but the channel was wider than it had seemed from shore. The current ran hard in the middle. Brown water boiled around sticks and foam. Then she saw the problem. A deep rut had opened under the surface. If the right wheel dropped into it, the wagon could tip. "Hold here," she shouted. Tom pulled back hard. The team stopped, feet braced. The wagon trembled. Geraldine climbed down from the bed into the water. The cold struck her like a slap. It was above her knees at once. She grabbed the wagon's side, felt for the wheel, and found the rut with her boot. The mud gave way under her. Tom swore. "Get back up." "Not yet," she cried. She pushed against the wheel with both hands. The wagon shifted, slow and heavy, and came out of the hole. The rope behind them tightened so hard it sang. From the far bank, Anna cried out. Geraldine looked up and saw Ben's small face against the quilt. His eyes were closed. His mother had stepped from the doorway and was now standing in the mud, half turned toward the creek, as if she wanted to run but could not move. Geraldine climbed back into the wagon bed, soaked to the waist. "Keep going," she said. The horses moved again. Step by step, they fought the current. The wagon shook and rolled. Water splashed over the front board. One blanket slipped, and Geraldine caught it before it could wash away. Then a loud crack split the air. Everyone turned. The bridge behind them had given way at one end. A section of planks sagged, then fell into the creek. Water rolled over the broken boards and carried them downstream like sticks. Bell, standing on the bank, shouted something Geraldine could not hear. His face had gone white. The team smelled the danger and wanted to rear. Tom leaned low over the reins. "Now, girls. Now." The far bank was close. Geraldine could see the claim office door open wide. She could see a table inside, a stove, and the dark wooden deed box on the shelf by the wall. Rain had not reached it yet, but floodwater had come into the lower room. Anna was waving both arms. "Hurry! He is worse." The wagon lurched up against the bank. The front wheels struck mud and stopped. For one hard second, nothing moved. The creek pushed at the back of the wagon. The rope held tight. The horses strained, legs shaking. Tom snapped, "Jump clear." Geraldine threw the rope coil over her shoulder and climbed out on the far side. Her boots sank deep, but she kept moving. Tom leaped down beside her. Together they grabbed the wheel rim and shoved. The wagon crept forward another foot, then another. At last, the front wheels found a firm place. The horses pulled, the rope was eased, and the wagon rolled onto the bank. Tom let out a long breath. Geraldine turned to Anna. "Bring the boy." Quickly. "Ah." Anna came running with Ben in her arms. His skin was hot, and his breathing sounded thin and tight. Dr. Mason was already climbing from the wagon, his bag in hand. "Lay him here," he said. They spread the dry blanket in the wagon bed and placed Ben on it. The doctor opened his bag at once. He checked the child's throat, then his pulse, then pressed a cool hand to his forehead. "He needs this medicine now," he said. Geraldine handed him the small bottle she had brought from town. The doctor measured out drops into a spoon and gave them to Anna to hold to the boy's lips. While he worked, Geraldine went into the claim office. The floor was wet. A little water had come in under the wall, but the shelf was still dry. She lifted the deed box with both hands. It was heavier than it looked, made of oak and iron. She hugged it to her chest and carried it outside. Bell met her at the door. He looked ready to cry with relief. "You got it," he said. "Yes." He put both hands on the box, but did not take it right away. If that had gone under, we would have had a mess for months. "Then let us not let it go under," she said. A shout came from the bank. The water had risen another few inches. The route they had used would not stay open long. Dark water was already licking at the lower edge of the road. The bridge, half gone, groaned again. Tom looked at Geraldine. "We need to go back now." Anna glanced at the wagon, then at her child. "Can he ride?" The doctor nodded. "Yes, but keep him warm and quiet. We will need him on the dry side at once." Geraldine touched Anna's arm. You and Ben ride with us. Belle can take the deed box. We do not stop until we are over." Anna gave a shaky nod. They loaded the wagon fast. Ben lay in the blanket with his mother beside him. The deed box was set near the front and covered with a flour sack to keep off spray. Dr. Mason climbed in next to them. Tom took the reins again. The return crossing was worse. The water had grown rougher and deeper, and the bank on the town side had started to crumble. As the wagon entered the creek, a wave hit the side hard enough to splash over the bed. Anna cried out and pulled the blanket higher over Ben. Geraldine grabbed the rope and kept it from tangling. Her hands were numb from the cold. Her coat dripped. Mud had cut a line across her cheek, but she did not feel it. Halfway across, the right rear wheels slid sideways. The wagon tilted. For one breathless moment, it seemed as if all of them might go over. The horses fought the current. The rope went tight. Tom shouted. Dr. Mason grabbed the sideboard. Anna held Ben close to her chest. Geraldine saw that the team needed one more pull, just one, or the wagon would jam in the hole. She dropped the rope, jumped into the water, and waded to the side of the nearest horse. The current slapped her legs and tried to shove her down. She planted both hands on the horse's wet shoulder and pushed with all her strength. "Pull!" she shouted. Tom whipped the reins, not hard, just enough. The horse surged. The wheel came free with a sucking sound. The wagon rolled forward at once. The bank rushed toward them. Men on the near side pulled the rope with all they had. Belle, Tom, and two freight hands dug their boots into the mud and hauled. The wagon bumped onto the road. The team climbed out of the water, steaming in the cold air. Then, with a great crack and a roar of water, the last main post of the bridge snapped loose and fell. The whole middle span slid down into the creek and vanished under the brown flood. Nobody spoke for a moment. Only the river made a sound. Geraldine climbed back into the wagon, shaking from the cold. Anna still held Ben. The boy had opened his eyes. He was weak, but he was awake. Dr. Mason smiled for the first time since morning. He will do better now. Anna covered her face with one hand and let out a long breath that sounded almost like a sob. Belle set the deed box down on the boardwalk and wiped his forehead. "We got both," he said. "I cannot believe it." Tom looked at the broken bridge in the creek. "I can." The bridge was no match for this flood. Quote, "No," Geraldine said, "but our wagon was." That brought a few tired laughs, and the sound felt strange after the long hour of fear. By evening, the water had begun to spread out across the low ground beyond town, but the creek no longer rose fast. Men brought lanterns and dry boards. Someone carried soup from the hotel kitchen. Someone else led the horses to shelter. Dr. Mason stayed with Ben in the boarding house front room, where the stove was warm. Anna sat beside the bed and did not move unless the doctor asked her to. Before dark, Belle opened the deed box on the table in the depot office and checked every paper by lamplight. Nothing had been lost. The lots, names, and marks were all there, dry and safe. When he looked up, he said, "Miss Carter, I think this town is going to owe you for a long time." Geraldine took off her wet coat and hung it by the stove. "Then build a better bridge," she said. "One that can stand a Nebraska spring." Belle nodded, as if that was the only sensible thing in the world. The next morning, the flood had dropped a little. The creek still ran fast, but it no longer looked wild. Broken boards from the old bridge lay downstream in the reeds. Men were already measuring the banks and talking about a new span with deeper posts and stronger braces. Geraldine stood at the edge of the road with a cup of coffee in her hands. The sun was pale over the prairie. Her boots were still muddy. Her hair was damp and tied back with a strip of cloth. Across the street, Anna was carrying Ben, wrapped warm and blinking in the light. He lifted a weak hand when he saw Geraldine. Geraldine raised her cup in return. Behind her, Tom Baird said, "You know, Carter, some folks will never believe that story." She looked at the empty place where the bridge had been. Only 2 broken posts were left above the water. "That is fine," she said. "I was there. And in the new town of Coyote Flat, with the creek still muddy and the rails still shining in the sun, that was enough."